And I came here in 1986 to run it for myself, and I signed the papers, and I was owner of the Red Barn Incorporated. People come in here for the experience, more so than I think anything else. And they love the fact that somebody's actually taking the time to listen. Maybe you learn in proportion to how much you listen and care. If you can find that balance between doing what you love that isn't really work, that might pay the bills, and can resonate with people and actually to some extent help people. Without my customers, I would be doing what I don't love, guaranteed.
Well, welcome again to what's happening in Augusta as we start possibly winding down our session.
That's right.
I am Representative John Picciotti, District 108, which is the towns of Fairfield, Mercer, and Smithfield.
And I'm Senator Scott Searway, represent District 16, Waterville, Winslow, Fairfield, Benton, Albion, Clinton, and Unity Plantation. And we've had a busy few weeks here. We're trying to come up with an agreement with the four different pieces of the puzzle here. We have, because we have the Republicans and Democrats in the Senate, and then we have the Republicans and Democrats in the House. And so we have to get everybody on board to get a 2/3 vote to get a budget passed.
Yeah, and including the governor.
So, sometimes I get emails saying that I'm doing a good job, and then others not so good job because they don't quite understand that it takes more than one person to be able to pass the budget. But and I think that's what we're trying to do is, I think everybody wants to pass the budget, but just to have different ideas and how that's done.
Well, the biggest thing, obviously is the, from the budget standpoint, at least I think from both the House and Republican Senate, is the 3% surtax. And we can talk more about that, but along with that is school reform. And to be truthful, the Common Core state standards have been expensive and harmful. They threaten Maine's education competitiveness, and the other problem is unfunded mandates for the local school districts. Now, excessive testing requirements and developmentality is inappropriate material is really what Common Core has caused. And I think the two biggest things is we've got to get rid of a lot of the unfunded mandates, and we've got to get rid of Common Core.
Yeah, I'm not a big proponent for Common Core. I've talked to students and the parents too, and the parents say it's very difficult for them to teach or work with their kids on like math equations because the math is totally different than what it was when the parents were in high school.
Yeah.
So it makes it very difficult for them to understand it, and I can't understand it either. So
Well, I sit and try to help my grandson with some of the stuff, and it takes me a while to figure it out.
Right.
I'm thinking, how is this poor kid supposed to figure it out?
Yeah. So anyway, I think that we have to look at that, but also, the Senate, we had come up with, as far as the Republican side, we felt the intent of the vote for the 3% was basically to fund schools for education. And that was the intent. I don't think the intent was to penalize our businesses and our professionals and have them, us lose them, because they're the ones that pay our wages. And if we lose them, then the ones that are gonna end up paying is the middle class or even the lower individuals that get less income, because they're not gonna have the taxes to help pay them in emergency situations.
Right.
And so we really needed to look at this, and we had figured out a way to fund the education which was well over $100 million. It was $100 million, and not have a tax increase on any aspect. And that was the nice thing that we had come up with, and we had submitted that budget, and it got voted down. Now, we're hoping that, you know, with the committee conference that's happened, that this will at least be figured out, but, you know, some were dead on wanting the 3%, and they want to tax the rich. Well, the rich are not always what you think. A lot of people reinvest in their businesses, and also donate to causes. There's, just think of Alphonse, how much that they've donated for Kobe, the Alphonse Center in University of Maine, the Alphonse Center for
KVCC.
you know, the Boys and Girls Clubs, and just think in Unity, there was the Carter had donated for that town. You know, we don't want to penalize these people and make this the highest tax state in the country. That's what we don't want.
Well,
if we get that label, people will not come and people will leave.
Yeah, we got, you know, we just cannot throw in the towel. And one of the situations is that group of people is also very mobile. They can come out of here, they can still do business in the state of Maine, but they can go establish their corporate headquarters, do whatever somewhere else, and, you know, we lose the money. I think on the House side of the budget, where with what the Senate is, we've put our budget line at $6.95 billion.
Yeah.
That's kind of the line that we've think where
We're
the other
7.1,
budgets
I
are,
think, or something like
are
that.
over $7 billion. So what we must have a policy drive spending, not a spending drive policy, is what we really need to do. But the other thing is that we're talking about a budget that, you know, if that 3% is in there, it's unsustainable over a long term. In fact, I saw some figures that within a short period of time, we will actually be, if we do that and we have that group of people start moving out, we'll actually be in $140 million shorter than we are right now with our budget.
Right.
Which is really gonna put a handcuff in. And the other thing is of course that EPS formula, that is designed and set up for a maximum of, in the state of Maine, of 250,000 students. Right now, we are under 185,000 students.
Yeah. I know, you know, when we came up with the 100 million to fund the schools, this 3% means $320 million.
Yeah.
And that is way over than what we need for the schools. So what do you think that money's gonna go? It's gonna go somewhere. It's gonna be spent. And because, let's face it, if you don't spend it, you won't get it back. And that's what they do. And government is like that. If you've ever been in government, they'll say, oh, we've got this budgeted, so we gotta spend it or else we won't get it again. And that's a terrible way to do business. I don't know, anybody in business does not do it that way. They try to put the money somewhere else where they're gonna make more money or reinvest it or whatever. But government doesn't work that way. Government, you know, we put the money out there, the budget's there, and then if they don't use it, it goes back in the general fund, so they don't wanna lose it. And that's what the problem is. So we don't wanna put excessive money that doesn't need to be there. The 55%, it would actually take 94 million to fund the 55%.
Right.
We had 100 million in there, not to mention the extra monies that we've allocated for different specialties of, like we'll say, the preschool, the budget that they wanted, and the special education. There's a different ones that are already funded that's not even in that figure. So we are really trying to meet what the intent of the voters wanted. here in my district, I'll tell you, if you talk to any of the business people or any of the professionals, they think this 3% is going to be devastating. I know of one lawyer group, they're just totally dismembering their team.
Yep.
They're getting done.
Well, and that's the problem. We've got basically the group that is in that bracket is about 16,000 in the state.
Yep.
Out of that is 11,000 that are what they call business pass-through accounts. That is, if you're not a C Corp, if you're an S corporation or a partnership or something like that, they get taxed on total income profit from the company, not just where a C Corp, only you get taxed for how much money you actually take and make out of there. And there's where the major problem comes in. We're taxing the state at maximum.
Right.
And we're only this far away from getting a AAA bond rating, which would be a tremendous savings on the state when it comes to issuing bonds on interest rates and stuff.
Yeah.
And this is gonna mess it all up.
I know, we was $1.2 billion in debt when the governor came into place, and now we're like 179,000.
Right.
I mean, that's 179 million in debt compared to the billion that we
Right.
was in. So we are almost in the black. But people want to spend, and spending is good for the needs that we need, but over and above that, that's foolish spending. We cannot do that. We have to look at what we have here in Maine. We have an older population here in Maine. If you look at the school attendance, it is almost a third or a half is gone. I used to do DARE for many years, back in '92. I can remember, and here I am in Benton, I live in Benton, there was 950 students in that Benton Elementary School. Now it's under 600. So, and I went to a graduation the other day up in Emden, and a teacher that I know was principal there, and he went and did a speech, and this is like 15 years later, and he said there was well over 80 students for high school students there graduating, and there was only 40 this time, so that's half. So it's everywhere.
Yeah, and the problem, again, is going back, is that clog or group of unfunded mandates that is causing a little bit of the problem within the school, because when I talk to different school, the administration is too high, but we've got all these unfunded mandates, so we need people to do the paperwork, et cetera, and stuff like that. That's the other thing is that right now, 59% of the school money goes to the classroom. The balance goes to everything else. And one of the proposals that I know has been made is we want to see it at 70% of that money going to the classroom.
Right.
And, that's where it should be.
I know on property taxes, 75% of your property tax goes to education.
Yep.
And then you have another 20 to 25% coming from the state. And so this is, if we don't get a handle on the spending the school budget is the biggest part of your taxes. It really is. And we also have jails. And I've been working on that. I'm on the Criminal Justice Committee, and back a few years ago, a couple of years ago, the governor, we either wanted the county jails to take total control over the county, or the state was gonna take control. Certainly, I feel that county does a better job at budgeting on, as far as utilizing per dollar on a jail, because they're elected officials, the sheriffs, and they want to show that they are doing something to get reelected. So they have an incentive. And so they tend to have lower cost for their staff. they have lower costs. They find ways to take the cost away from food. A lot of them are doing gardens. Some are doing some things with their rubbish. They are doing things with work projects and trying to get them out sooner out of their jails. They're doing all kinds of different things, education. So anyway, by doing that, it reduces the cost, but we still have the same formula for jails as we do schools. So you got about 80% is paid by the county property tax, and then 20% paid by the state. So we have a 12.5 roughly $1 million piece that we paid the last couple of years. But we kind of short funded the jails because they was gonna have 14 million something, and somehow somebody messed it up and they got 12.5. So anyway, we did a study, we found out, where the money's, which jails needed the money, which ones didn't, and whatever, and came out that added 3.8 million that they needed to cover the whole state for their county jails, and I had put that under one of my bills. And,
Okay, yeah,
and it just went through. I don't know if it's at your house today or not.
Well, one of the problems that we have right now, I think, is that we have tabled a ton of bills. In other words, they come up for a vote,
Yeah.
and all somebody has to do is raise their hand and say, I want to table this for today.
Yeah.
And it's sitting there. We have got a lot of bills
Tabled.
sitting on the table that are going to have to be voted on in the next couple of weeks.
And some of it I can understand when they table because the votes aren't there because some people are on these committees like the budget one.
Yeah.
And if they're gone, they can't vote and they
Yep.
want everybody to be
Yeah,
able to
they've been
vote.
doing a lot of that, so.
So I think that's part of the tabling process, why they table it until they can get them back in there to vote on, especially if they're heavy budgeted items.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, one of the good things we did vote on, I mean, it's not all bad news,
Right.
was, and it went through it with really flying colors, is Senator Whittemore's bill on shopping for health insurance.
Yep.
And just in a kind of a quick summary nutshell, all
Right.
it does is presents a situation. If you're gonna have a procedure done and your local provider or hospital says, okay, that's gonna cost you $3,000 for that procedure. Of course, in the way deductibles are today with health insurance and stuff.
Right.
Now, what this bill does is allows you to go, there's a specific website, or you can actually, or go on the phone, and you look around, and anywhere between Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts, if you find a provider that you trust that will do that for, let's say, $1,100,
Yeah,
but they're not in your network,
right.
by that law, you are going to be able to say, okay, I think I'm going to go have that done for $1,100 and save myself a bunch of money, $1,900. And then the insurance company, in return, is going to give you credit for that $1,900 between either the premiums or
It's a
deductibles,
good-
that type
good
of thing.
bill.
So it's a good bill. It
Yeah.
passed both the House and the Senate. It's just waiting the governor's signature at this
Yeah,
point. So
I think that's a
it's
good
not all
bill.
bad news.
No. Actually, there's been some really good things that we passed, and I think that we've been working hard on the dam up in at the down east where they have the it's actually there's three dams there and there's
Oh, yeah.
two gates. There's
Yeah.
3 gates and
Yeah.
2 gates.
Yeah.
The forest woodlands gate, and the woodland lumber mill has actually been operating it and everything, but they're at the point where it costs $220,000 just for licensing for FERC.
Wow.
And FERC is a federal environmental
Yep.
commission. So anyway, they basically, in order to stay with FERC, and you only need FERC if you get power from them. So if you're making money from the power, generating power from that dam, then FERC has to be involved. Well, they do make money off from the dam that they have, that the mill owns in
Okay.
Canada.
Sure.
But these two are gates that's in Maine, just
Yeah.
off the Canadian border. So these, if Maine takes it over, these two dams, well, two gates, that would help the mill in Canada, and they would be willing to operate and manage it. All we do is take the ownership and claim that we're not using it for power, which we're not going to be.
Right.
Because they were only making like $30,000 or $60,000 a year on power on it before. And so this, if we take it over, and we don't have to be licensed under FERC, it frees them up, it helps
Oh, that would
the
be-
mill,
Yep.
and it helps the state, as far as not lowering the water, because they were gonna be forced to lower the water 6 feet.
Wow.
Yeah, and this is the, one of the great, Great East what's the name of the lake anyway? It's one of the better lakes that we have, and it would lower the 6 feet, and some would have hundreds of feet of shore
Yeah.
exposed, and it would be really, in the East Grand Lake.
Yeah,
That's,
okay, yeah, yeah.
And it's a
that's
beautiful
crazy.
area. If you've ever been up there,
It's-
it is just unbelievable.
So you
up
have to
there.
get Earl Smith's book of the Dam Connection, and then his follow-up, More Dam Trouble, and
Right.
that'll explain that'll explain the level of
That's
water
right.
in the dam, how the
Yeah.
dams operate.
Yeah, it's in good shape, the dam's in great shape. We had a report on that, and we also got a report on their operating procedures, and what we've come up with is we would only take ownership if FERC releases from the
Yeah.
agreement, and also that they would be willing to operate it for at least a minimum of 15 years.
Wow.
And if they don't, if they sell out,
Yeah.
that other owner would have to take it over,
Okay.
that operation and whatever. And then also 5 years for 4 intervals past that, so it's pretty awesome, yeah.
Now, there was a bill that came through the House that the Senate passed, and we'll get into some of the details. Well, basically what it was a female genitalia
Molestation,
molestation mutilation
Yeah.
bill that apparently going on in parts of the state is young girls are getting mutilated through some type of I don't know if it's a religious thing or whatever.
It's a
but
culture.
It's a culture thing.
Yeah.
And so the bill came through as to make it illegal
right,
and make it a penalty.
A crime.
Crime.
yeah.
And unfortunately, we had a lot of discussion on the House, and I hate to bring into the politicking end of it, but the Democrats, with the exception of maybe one or two, all voted down the bill, and
And they
killed
wanted
it.
education,
They
right.
made it so, well, first we have to educate the people, and then they'll stop, which is, well, we could say the same thing, why don't we do that with rape and drunken driving, and,
Right,
you know, we
yeah.
can educate the people first and see how
Right.
well that works.
Right.
And,
Well,
Oh,
because
it's
we
aggravating.
dealt with that before it got to you.
yeah,
and-
you guys passed it.
And I was on the Criminal Justice Committee, and we had actually some come in that actually experienced this. And what happens is young girls, and actually the mother came in and talked about it,
Yeah.
what she experienced in her lifetime, and she brought a young daughter who was like 6 years old. And
Just,
it was probably one of the worst committee,
right,
hearings that we had to hear.
oh, I can't.
And so she talked about it, and what happens is they may take a 10 or 13-year-old girl and then they put her on the kitchen table and they will cut them and then sew them up so that they cannot have sex with at young ages. And the problem is they can't urinate, they get infections, they feel like they're having a baby every time that they try to have a period. There's all kinds of horrific
Plus, well, not only that, but, yeah,
situations.
it's very, very painful. It's a
Oh,
constant. I mean,
it's awful. It's one of the worst crimes that I can think of.
Yeah.
I mean, cruel and inhumane. And then I felt I was on another planet when I was listening to these legislators saying, well, we shouldn't make a law for that. We should just get education and
Right.
educate the parents. Well, in a culture, you can do all educating you want, but that doesn't help that 10-year-old. That 10-year-old can't defend themselves. I said, this is just unbelievable. And I explained to them, I'm in law enforcement. I said, we serve and protect, and this needs protection. We need to protect these children and do it now. We need to vote this through. And I did manage to get some convinced, and they did turn their vote
Yep.
in the Senate. But when it went to the House, it didn't work, and it went all party, and I could not
So
believe.
there was one or two Democrats that voted against it.
Unbelievable. I just can't believe
It's-
any humane person would
Yeah,
not
it's
have.
something you lose sleep over.
Oh,
It just
I
blows.
just could not believe it.
There is, however, I will say that one of the ladies, and I believe it is Representative Siraki,
She's worked hard on this.
I believe she's going to bring it back and put an amendment on that bill. I'm not sure what the amendment is, but she's just a couple of seats down from me, so we talked a little bit.
Well, what it is.
She's gonna bring an amendment to us and try to run this thing through.
Right, I've spoken to her too, and what she wants to do is still put the bill in for the crime, but also put a little piece in for the education to meet what the Democrats want.
Yeah.
But there is already education piece paid
already
by the
there
federal
anyway.
government.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
already there.
Yeah.
This is, again, added spending that we didn't need to do. And here we are, we gotta do this to get that passed.
Right.
So we're putting in the bill with the crime and then the education piece in there. Hopefully we'll get enough Democrats to vote for it. I
We
don't
do
know if
need-
that'll happen. If it does, it still has to go to appropriations, and it may die there because of the fiscal note, because of the agreement for the budget. So it's hard to say what's gonna happen with this bill.
What we need, but
It's-
we do need people to contact our legislator on it if
Oh.
it's something that you can
This
look at.
FGM bill is really important. It needs to be passed for the safety of these young girls. I cannot stress it enough.
Well, there's another bill too that you worked on that has been tabled and not bought, it was tabled about 3 weeks ago and has not been bought back yet, which really aggravates me, and that is sex trafficking on girls under 18 years old.
Yeah.
Right now is a 10-year sentence, and the bill comes in to maximize that up to a 25-year sentence. And again, the same way, straight party lines.
I know.
Oh, we don't need that bill because if you go to 25 years, it gives the judge more leeway. It was just unbelievable that we sit here in this day and age, this far along in our civilization, and we're still allowing the sex trafficking without really coming down hard and pounding on it.
I'm on the opioid task force, and I have put several bills in for crimes on drug use. And many of them did not pass because they felt, why make more penalties on these people? They need treatment.
Yeah.
And treatment's fine, but you gotta get them into treatment. So a lot of times, they won't go into treatment unless law enforcement is involved. I mean, it's like a smoker. They don't go to get treatment or to get off smoking unless the doctor says you're dying, or you are, and you're going to die if you don't do this, or you've got cancer and something really major happens, then they start quitting. But we need penalties out there. They put a bill in trying to put a safe place to shoot up
Oh, yes.
with drugs.
We did kill that in the House.
I said, why don't we do a pilot program right here at the Senate so I can watch everybody, see how they
Well,
react?
not only, be a big money maker, because you could stand outside selling drugs as they come in.
Oh my God, I just don't understand
Where
the
the
reasoning.
lines are coming from.
And one lady has a Bible from another country saying that we should get rid of all this, abolish all our laws for drug use and just let them use, and it will
Everything
work.
will be fine.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
It's
So-
worked for years like that.
And she's on the opioid task force. And
Okay.
I'm just amazed.
Yeah, I want to thank you, the Senate, for passing my general assistance bill, which moved the penalty for falsifying on the general assistant forms, trying to steal general assistance money, from a 120-day suspension to a 2-year suspension.
Right.
However, it came over into the House and was killed because, again, right along party lines, just simply because, oh my goodness, that's way too long of a period of time, just because somebody, and it isn't that somebody, the way it was written is that it has to be an intentional falsification, not I made a mistake type of thing.
Right.
Because people are gonna make mistakes, and that's not the idea. The idea is the people that are bouncing around playing this game and purposely falsify the information.
I have a bill in right now for a governor's bill. Actually, the governor wanted me to put it in, so I
Yeah.
did. And this is the second time I put it in. The first time it didn't pass, but hopefully it will this time. It's a 6-month suspension of a driver's license if you get found guilty of and on a crime dealing with drugs. If you have any drug conviction,
Yeah,
you get a 6-month suspension. In other words, you go without your horse.
well,
You know?
the hard thing
Hey,
with
6
that
months,
is-
don't do drugs. That's
I was
it.
gonna say, and that's the hard thing, is because it is really difficult to, from a DUI standpoint, to tell whether they're, marijuana is a good example.
Yeah,
How do you tell if somebody's high while
Right.
they're driving down the street?
yeah. I don't want
Because
somebody
that
doing
stuff
drugs.
stays, well, I mean, you can do a blood test, but that stuff stays in your system for 2 or 3 days after you've done it. So,
Right.
the next day, you're obviously not high.
Yeah.
But the THC's still in your system, so,
Right. And then the other good thing about this is that it mirrors what the federal government already have in place.
Okay, yeah.
And by doing that, we get $14 million for highway fund.
Oh, wow.
So that is nice, $14 million.
Kind of a good way to start a bonus.
Yeah, it helps. Especially when we're losing some money from, 50 million from the mental health.
Yes, yeah, we're gonna
Because
have to pay
facility
back a bunch
that
of
we
money.
may have to pay back unless the President of the United States
Can-
changes the policy.
Yep.
So that's something we have to look at.
Well, it's been good. We've got, probably our next show, hopefully will be our last show. Technically, we're supposed to be done on the 21st,
Right.
but,
It's hard to say.
that's very difficult to say.
We'll
yes.
see how
We
today
stopped
and
getting
tomorrow
paid.
work.
We stopped getting paid at the first of the month, so that's,
I'll tell you, being in this, as the Senate, whatever, or the
Yeah.
House,
yeah,
I don't think you look at the pay, because the pay is very minimal.
exactly.
We do it because we care, and I think we have a lot of good people, no matter what party. They all are trying, but it's
Everybody's
how they
working, and it's just
just
different thought
different
process.
point of views. you know, but I just, it is sometimes heart-wrenching when you see these things, and we certainly think differently, and when you know what the consequences will be if we don't pass these things,
Yeah.
then it does.
Yeah, I do.
does
I think I saw that we're
hurt.
the second lowest paid legislature in the country.
Yeah.
New Hampshire being the
New
worst.
Hampshire the worst, yeah. There are some, like Massachusetts, I think 90% of them are lawyers, and they're making pretty good
Making
money.
pretty decent money, yes.
So, but one thing that's good is we don't have all lawyers. We have everybody from different.
Good mixture.
Yeah.
Different ways
some
of life.
Different ways of life. They have a lot of experiences. We have some, you know, several teachers, restaurant worker, people owners,
Yeah.
restaurants, furniture, you know,
Business people.
There's a lot of business
you know,
people. There's a lot of
just
people,
regular-
professionals that were doctors.
Yeah, regular mothers that.
Yeah, and we
you
all
know,
look at their
fathers.
expertise to get some advice, because we all learn from each other. And so it's really a good
Right.
experience, and it's also, it's good that we
Well,
have that
you know, it's
diversity.
It's a boiled down fact that we just need to make our state a lot better for our children and grandchildren.
Yeah.
And that's what it all boils down to.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
So we understand it, but we do take it to heart when we try to do something good, and we see the different decisions, and it really does hurt sometimes.
It does.
Because you're trying your best.
So we'll see you again in a couple of weeks and, or maybe sooner, depending upon when we get out and see what, happens. Hopefully, we are all working. I know I've gotten a ton of stuff on it, and I'm sure you have too. Don't shut our state down.
Oh,
And
I don't believe that's gonna
not-
happen.
That's not on our agenda, believe
No,
me.
no, I don't think it is on any of them, so.
Yep. All right.
So, thank you, and have a good week, and we'll see you next time.